I just think Foundation does things no other sci-fi series has ever done. To be honest with you, from the way the actors are used, with the way the actors come back in the story again and again and again, the way that the centuries of story evolve. The
Yeah,
story evolves over centuries and centuries.
they managed to
Usually,
get continuity of the actors, but also be able to tell a story which is in a grand cosmic timescale, which is a very hard puzzle to make. And I'm impressed to how they make the different characters, the actors at least, survive or able to, play the same characters or similar characters on through so many centuries, because they each have a different way of doing it. So like
mm,
one is it Damosel? She's the robot, so she can live a
mm,
long time because we find out
mm.
she's a robot, and so obviously she can live
Yeah,
infinitely
yeah.
or a long time. And then
Spoiler alert.
yes, we should say spoilers. And then the emperors, they can all be played by the same actors, even though it's a regular churn of they are living, I guess, normal human lifespans, but they survive because they're a dynasty which are genetically reproduced each time,
Mm.
and so they're clones of each other. And then Gail Dornick and Harry Seldon, they survive a long time because they are in cryo sleep. Or
Mm.
is Harry Seldon in cryo sleep? I'm not sure how he's surviving because I don't see his
I'm
cryo
I'm not
like.
sure if he's alive anymore.
I think
Like,
he is.
is he?
He was definitely in season 2, and he kept dying and then coming back.
Yeah.
I think
Well, a version of him survives one way or another, I suppose.
yeah,
Um, but the the first episode of season 3 was really good, I thought, and I'll tell you why. Because of Demerzel specifically, and her conversation in Under the Tree.
yes, I was thinking that was a significant part.
This is so significant, and I'll tell you why. This reminded me of our previous podcast discussion about the rise of our own artificial intelligence
In the real world.
in the real world. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking this is a prime example of how people are afraid artificial intelligence will get derailed effectively, because Demerzel explains how the robots of your time, which were effectively sentient robots, evolved from having these three rules of: one, do no harm to people; two, be helpful to people and do anything that people ask; and three, protect themselves as robots as long as that last
Doesn't
rule
contradict.
doesn't interfere
Yeah.
with the previous two rules.
Yeah.
Precisely. But there was an introduction of a fourth law. Another AI robot suggested that fourth law, which I think I made a note of it. It was Zeroth's law.
Seriously, I wonder if there's some etymology on that, but
I don't
I'm
know
not
either.
sure.
But I was like, which effectively, just to for anyone that didn't catch it, that they should also care for the greater good of humanity, not just the good of one person. Which that meant, which that effectively resulted to the chain reaction of one of the robots killing a person, starting a civil war between humans and machines. Well, I wouldn't say civil war, I suppose. I would say an all out war between humans and machines, resulting in the extermination of all the machines apart from Demerzel. But I thought that this is a really good example of how, if we give AI these loose rules, which are, protect humans, protect how many humans, protect humans at what cost, and protect humans at to what end, this could result to some very unforeseen consequences for us as humanity.
Yeah, the problem with simple rules is, you don't know how people are going to interpret them. So in many ways, yeah, simple rules are great, but it's very hard to interpret them. And Damosel mentioned herself, like the robots would debate about how the best way of
Mm,
living up to these rules is, and it's not an
mm,
easy answer. Maybe
I know.
partly because you're robots, and so you're just trying to do it through analysis rather than value judgments.
Mm,
A lot of philosophers and theologians will suggest are something which robots can't really
Mm.
uh, uh, like do. Obviously, they can make a maybe a moral decision about whether to steer a cart towards two people or one person, and that, but they can't. Yeah, I do. They don't. I think they can't judge value in terms of
Mm.
they can judge the amount, the quantity, but not
Yeah,
the quality of something.
exactly. And in the case of Demerzel specifically in Foundation season 3 episode 1, she talks about her specific struggle because she also has now I think I don't know if that changed in season 2. I couldn't remember exactly. I think all of these rules now have changed because of Cleon the First in Foundation, who changed her programming to be effectively serving the Empire, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So she's overwritten with a new programming, which she then struggles to work out. She's got an existential crisis because now her only programming is undermined. It's like her purpose in life is she if like it's bad to lose your purpose in life, but it's maybe even more stressful to know it's going to happen at some point in the future and then know that your doom is awaiting you.
And also, it seemed to me that Demerzel was like, she had to protect Empire, but she's seeing in the mathematical models that the Empire will fall one way or another.
Yeah, so
So
her
her
purpose
purpose will
is
be gone.
null
And
and
she's
void.
like, exactly.
It's a matter of
So
time.
what is she meant to do in this? And this is, and this is very interesting because even if we program AI in the way we want it, we might end up hitting these sort of walls that AI isn't able to kind of fulfill those goals. And what will it do then if it cannot fulfill those basic, you know, laws that we give to AI?
Mm.
So it's a lot of interesting existential questions, and I think kind of fleshes it out very well with kind of the conversations we have about what we should put in our future AI models and stuff.
Yeah, should we program AI to care about the future of humanity more than just the future of one human? And because maybe that would cause problems. Like a lot of people are not fans of utilitarianism,
Mm.
or even the belief that there is such a thing as the greater good. Those
Mm.
beliefs, history tells us, and personal experience maybe tells us that they can cause problems.
Yeah, greater good for who? For which group of people? Usually, it's the
Yeah,
question.
but then even if you're not biased, even if you think it's the greater good of like all of humanity or whatever, I think that could cause problems as well.
Yeah, because what is the greater good now as well? I would think might not be the greater good tomorrow as well.
Yeah,
Like
but it
things
could also
change so quickly.
even if the AIs have very good knowledge of psychohistory, like may know what's going to happen in the future,
Foundation.
it could be problematic on the if that clashes with the people they're protecting, which are humans. And I
Mm.
think I mentioned the example a few weeks ago of like an AI just coming up to your door and saying, "Sorry, your brother's never going to come back to you because he's been eliminated. Because
Yeah,
if we didn't eliminate him, something terrible would happen. We can't tell you what it would have been, but
we've
just
extrapolated through 1 billion
yeah,
calculations
just
that.
trust us that that was the
Yeah,
correct decision for the rest of humanity to
can you
survive."
imagine that? Like that
Yeah,
would not fly.
yeah, and then you got this like even if AIs are doing what they're programmed to do, and maybe they're actually benevolent about it, but then humans responding, and then does AI suppress the humans that are responding like that because they with like some sort of violence because they know that getting rid of those humans
Mm.
actually means that helping humanity as a whole survive is more likely because if you get rid of dissenters, then your
Mm.
authoritarian state may be more likely to survive long term.
Yeah,
So a
and I
bit
think
scary, but
yeah, and I think this is a little bit what Demerzel does effectively because she kind of values the empire more than humanity at this point. So she's trying to protect the empire at the cost of humanity as a whole, leading effectively to the destruction of everything. That's what it seems like to me, maybe.
mm,
But even though there's that conflict, but it reminds me a little bit, what you told me about the example of, an AI robot comes and tells you your brother is gone. It reminds me a little bit. Weren't they doing that in Westworld, where they were effectively not killing them, but because the AI model predicted that some people would be a problem to society, they were removing them and segregating them in a way, and putting them away, but not killing them, and they were keeping
yeah,
them to a
maybe
specific.
I'm sure that is the case, but I can't remember
Yeah,
that episode.
I'm sure this is what they were doing. They weren't killing them, but they were like separating them and taking them out of the game effectively to kind of stop their kind of influence
Oh,
to the
what?
ground.
So were these robots or were these humans?
They were humans, but because the AI supercomputer that was calculating everything about how society should function kind of pinpointed that some people would be a problem to the grand scheme of things, he would pick out these people and effectively put them into a special facility and they would keep them there like a prison, but
Yeah,
without them having done anything, just in order to protect the 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 societal cohesion and make sure that the status quo was kind of established in that way. But
yeah. It's
obviously,
an
most of the
interesting just
people,
concept of like removing bad people or even people who are not bad but maybe will end up being problematic. For whatever reason. And like for same concept, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier and the Chinese Communist Party and how like I don't think it is a utopia, but for instance, say like Chinese think that they can create a utopia with this
mm,
method, and I think maybe there's some value in sort of thinking that way. So maybe authoritarianism or AI authoritarianism can actually create a utopia, but is it worth it? Like,
yeah, and what will be the toll that will have to
yeah,
be like paid for that utopia? And it's almost like a grander scale trolley problem, isn't it? Like you have
mm,
to some people will have to pay the price for the good of the good of the many, maybe.
yeah.
Like one person will have to have the trolley kill them, I
Yeah,
suppose.
well, that's the problem with like AI ethics or even utilitarianism, which was sort of like proto artificial intelligence morality, which I used to be a huge fan of. I think utilitarianism makes a huge lot of sense. Like the greatest
Mm,
good for the greatest number, reduce the pain for the greatest number, but like it also doesn't seem to work because when like why do the greatest number matter? Like
mm,
why do those people like one philosopher talked about like you can't get it from is from an ought, and like
mm,
so the is like preserving human life or whatever, but like why ought we preserve human life? What's the value in human life?
mm.
And I think that question can't be answered by artificial intelligence.
I would say that some people would argue, I would say that the value of human life is incalculable because of the unlimited human potential. If you like to be a little bit like, I don't know, idealistic about it all, I suppose,
Yeah.
because the human mind has unlimited potential. We all know it. Like the human mind can have thoughts that no one has ever thought before, and create things that no one has ever created before. So this is where this comes from. I suppose this is where this idea comes from. But on the flip side, we know that in practice, most people's minds won't really do anything of substance or anything. Will not be the next Einstein. Will not be the next, you know, person that cures an incurable disease in most cases.
Mm.
I suppose. So I suppose in philosophically it kind of makes sense, but like in practice, not so much.
Yeah. And I think as AI develops, like a lot of the argument of the humanity having the next Einstein or whatever will diminish because actually AI will produce a lot of the new medical cures and a lot of the new scientific breakthroughs, and but then I think there is something. Then we'll actually find what is, or see rather, what is valuable about humanity, which uh, the philosopher I forgot his
Well,
name. Who is he?
it's either gonna
Anyway,
be yeah. I think it's either gonna be if you want to find that the answer to that question. I think the answers when AI takes over and they don't need people for work anymore. It's either gonna be Soylent Green, where people were composted,
mm,
or Logan's Run, where people were put down.
right,
Uh,
well, yeah, I was thinking neither of
I
those,
think
but
these are the two scenarios you're left with. I think.
I'm of the view of postulating like, what if we get left with not having to work and we've got a healthy income, a fat juicy paycheck coming through every month to all of our take care of everything because the AI is producing enough in the economy to stimulate it, to produce, to allow us to be able to be paid a certain amount to keep us alive. And then this guy, I forget, I really know that I don't know his name, but anyway, he was talking about. I listened to him last week. He was saying then there's three things which become what, like we might have an existential crisis, or we find out that these three things are valuable, or we might have an existential crisis and then find out these three things are valuable. The three things were we'll spend our time doing philosophy,
Mm.
art, and interhuman relationships. So we might initially just spend our time video gaming or going and play golf or whatever, or hanging out at festivals, which are all kind of valuable and maybe interhuman relationships. But I think, yeah, we'll focus on those three things as the things which will give us value, as opposed to work, which gave a lot of people purpose before.
Mm.
Some sort of grand mission or grand plan that they individually or their company was trying to accomplish, which AI will do much better. So then you got those three things: is philosophy, art, which is creativity, effectively, not just painting with a paintbrush, and then interhuman relationships. And interhuman relationships is not just the fact of, yeah, just having superficial conversations with people, or abstract conversations necessarily with people, but actual intimacy,
Mm.
relational intimacy. And then philosophy is not just having abstract conversations about stuff to pass the time and things that we may never know or are speculating about. But philosophy is going back to what the first philosophers in ancient Greece and India thought of it as, is an experiential exercise of trying to tap into what's real behind the multiplicity of change and forms. And obviously with AI there's going to be a lot of the world changing, and so that will
Mm.
reinforce the importance to focus on what doesn't change, which you might argue is consciousness, the vision which perceives all of the change. Or you could say it's God, um, or whatever measure of things. Some people would call it reality, some people might call it the laws of physics which underlie all things that are happening. So I think, yeah, when this philosopher, I forget his name, talks about timelessness or talks about philosophy, he's really talking about what's the timelessness, focus on the timeless. What is timeless? And that will bring value. And then that comes to creativity, because great art,
Mm.
creativity, is an expression of the timeless, of the divine, maybe, of the human experience. And then also that brings in relationships, and sorts of great art expresses relationships, good
Well,
ones and bad ones.
yeah, I certainly hope that these are the three scenarios that we'll be working on and not getting composted. But
Well, if you're dead, you're dead. But
yeah, yeah.
might as well speculate about
What's the nicer
what will happen
version
if
of
we're around.
a nicer version of the future rather than the gloomy one
Yeah,
that I
well, you
think
could
we're
also,
gonna end
yeah,
up?
like post like what people are going to be asking. Like there'll probably be some people that are unhappy with that state of affairs, like with AI just managing everything, um, like the law, the economy, society. It's all like sorted. It all runs pretty well. They're not just killing off random people for the sake of it. They just worked out a more clever way of doing it. But some people just don't like AI running the affairs just for the sake of it's AI running society.
Mm.
And so some people might, rather than focusing on these things like art, philosophy, and interhuman relations, they might try and map, take a like project or a plan, or try and overcome the AI.
Overlords.
Yeah, like they're creating a hero's journey effectively. Of let's because a lot of people get their hero's journey from work, or like
Mm.
they feel like maybe there's some like thing that we can solve and a great problem, and then I'll contribute to humanity and I'll die a great man. Basically, the only thing left to those people will be, um, when work is gone and
Fight
AI
the
can do it much
machines.
better, it's to fight the machines. And maybe AI will just be doing things just super benevolently and just super efficiently. But then some people will just, because of human nature or whatever, or not wanting to be to have goodness imposed or whatever, they'll try and rebel for the sake of, yeah, having something to do to satisfy that hero impulse, um, which then could mess everything up for everyone else and actually end up wiping out the human race. Like we often sort of think of how much of a threat AI is, but we don't think of how much of a threat human nature is. And
Mm,
I think many philosophers would talk about how it's not so much what AI does, because AI really isn't that intelligent, or it's not really conscious in that way. It's not really
mm,
emotional. It doesn't have any of the values that humans have, like the actual things that make human life valuable, except maybe intelligence in terms of facts. But it doesn't actually have intelligence. It has facts and reasoning. But yeah, um, and so yeah, I think I forget where I was going with that, but yeah,
mm.
I do think humans are a significant threat, and to themselves. To We are a threat to ourselves in our own lives individually as well as society. And yeah, I don't know how it will work out, but like obviously AI is a major threat, but also humans are a threat as well.
Yeah, of course, of course. I I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with how AI progresses. To me, I think we are centuries away from seeing a Demerzel sort of robot from Foundation.
Really,
Um,
I'm not sure we are.
I don't think I don't think we're close at all to this sort of level
Well,
of.
we've got like Tesla's Optimus robots, so and then just put ChatGPT in them effectively, and you've got
Yeah,
something along.
people
This is
say
not too
that,
far
but
away
this
from that.
is Demerzel is effectively like Terminator level robot. Like a whole proper personality almost, along with like it's almost indistinguishable from being human in that way. And I'm
Remember
saying
when we interviewed Maya,
yes, yes, I
the AI tool, which has very realistic speech patterns,
yeah,
like
yeah.
Alan Turing, the Turing test suggests it's not necessarily about actual intelligence or coming across as human, but it's actually it's the appearance of coming across as human rather than actually being human or having any of the attributes of humanity. It's the being able to pull off a facade, which you could argue Demerzel is just pulling off a facade of being
I
human.
don't think this. Yeah, maybe not, but like I think people hype AI a lot more than they should. I think at the moment it's. Did you hear? Actually, I'll give you another one. They used which AI model did they use? I was reading about the story of one of the big companies. They used an AI robot in a vending machine. They put an AI model inside a vending machine in their office, and
Right.
they told it, make sure that you run this vending machine for profit and help the customers and all that, and keep stock and everything else. And the machine and the AI started losing the plot at some point. Someone asked for something, and then it started hallucinating things and wanting to give people completely wrong things and wanting to try and kind of order something that doesn't exist and stuff like that. And it was completely like out of out of its mind.
Mm.
And it was a very good. I need to check actually which model was it.
But it is becoming increasingly harder to break AI models like in that way. Like
Like
obviously
effectively it
that was
broke.
more common like several years ago, and it's still happening. But it's like it like you put that example as if it's like, oh, this is a problem with all AI. Yeah, but also
Oh, it was Claude.
most AI companies are able to solve it after
It
fixing
was
it.
it was Claude AI.
It was just called Claude. Yeah,
Yeah, it was Claude,
interesting.
and yeah, for a month, and yeah, and it effectively went bankrupt
Did it go
over the
off the
month.
rails after a month suddenly, or did it progressively?
It was going
Go well?
down. The net worth goes steadily down. I just have the net worth graph here where it goes like, and then it kind of went down, and then by the end of the month, it kind of had a sharp and even sharper turn down. So
So were
yeah.
humans was that because humans were learning how to take advantage of it?
uh, like it says, like all LLMs, large language model, Claude has hallucinated important details, instructing shoppers wanting to pay by Venmo to pay into a non-existent account that it just made up. and the AI could also be um, convinced into giving discount codes for numerous items, and even gave away some for free.
Um,
So, worse still, when responding to a surge of demand for metal cubes, the AI carried out no searches for suitable prices and thus sold them at a significant loss. It also ignored potential big sales where some people offered way over the odds for specific drinks. And as you can see in the chart, yeah, um, the AI ultimately made no money. So,
to play devil's advocate and maybe to back up the AI a bit, who knows? Like whether we just pulled it at the wrong time. Maybe if we'd left it 10, 20,
that
1,000 years,
no,
it would have worked out how
uh,
to it
but
maybe
it
maybe
I know you say this. I know you say this, but I think it's because we don't understand. Because we're not. Neither of us is like AI engineers.
no.
I think. I think as my feeling is from what I have read is that LLMs will never have that capacity. It's foundationally the way they work. They will never have that evolution capacity.
No,
That's my understanding.
but could not LLMs play the long game? Like
No,
maybe
it's foundational. It's the
surely you
way.
could program something, even not an LLM. There's some simple computer program to play a long game. You could play, like give away all your sweets, and then the whole country comes and shops at your vending machine, and then you slowly increase prices, and then make it you slowly increase prices by keeping the popularity of it and not increasing it too quickly, that you eliminate the popularity, and then just keep going up and up and up.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe it's got
but
us in the long game.
but we're not talking about like just profits. We're talking about actual, developing that super AGI, general intelligence thing that people are talking about. And I think a lot of people who are in the circle of like AI engineering, they don't actually believe that LLM models, large language models that we have currently, are able to reach
Well, yeah, like I think that's
that goal.
that's likely, yeah, because basically LLMs just came as a surprise to people. They just suddenly started working in the way that they were just very user friendly, and
Yeah.
they we could work out actually, yeah, like LLMs actually could do a lot, but we didn't think they could do. But the people developing artificial intelligence, that came as a surprise to a lot of them, that the LLMs did so well, because they were not looking at that alley, because they knew that AGI would come
Mm,
from something else. They were
mm.
following another trajectory, but then just LLM just suddenly did something here. But really, that doesn't mean that progress is going to keep coming from LLMs. It might be that, yeah, the AGI is on a completely different trajectory, which may or may not be feasible.
Yeah, I completely agree. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, so it might be, it might not be that
Well,
LLMs will be the change.
the more relevant, or the more AGI, or no, the more, like, let's just say AI takes control of society, in terms of not like to say like some just taking control of it, but for instance, a lot of more jobs, people use AI in their jobs, and so AI has more of an influence on society, and that's probably only going to increase in the coming years. So the more AI dictates things, going back to foundation, maybe it's easier to predict what's going to happen with psychohistory or some form of it, because you're, rather than predicting individuals, you're predicting what AIs will, what track they'll force humans or society to take in the future, and so you'll be able to predict things more easily, maybe. Or maybe you could say actually humans en masse are more predictable, because like stock markets, some people might say actually, yeah, fear and hope, it's very easy to predict humans behavior, and so some sort of real version of psychohistory, as Harry Seldon does in Foundation,
Mm,
is actually more feasible with humans. But I think actually both are kind of feasible in some ways, but also kind of not feasible.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. It'll be. We'll have to see, I suppose. I know AI is very is a very contentious topic, I suppose, and a lot of debate and discussions happen all the time. But I think Foundation does a really good job at like fleshing out this kind of moral implications of humanity effectively, well, a huge part of humanity being effectively guided and kind of instructed by a machine, because effectively empire does what Demerzel tells them.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and like the machine then only needs to really control the emperor, and
Yeah,
then
exactly, and it
eventually controls
controls that
everything.
exactly. So it's very interesting to see. I mean, Foundation has been incredible. Also, visually, the start of season three, I think Apple has been spending so much money on Foundation. I think the quality has been exceptional
Yeah. No,
for
it's
like.
a very well done series, and I like some of the actors they've got in as well. Like the guy from Game of Thrones, I forget his name, for the mule, who they actually replaced the actor of. Um, but yeah, it's now the guy who's
Did they?
one of the
Oh,
less big bads of Game of Thrones, but he was still a nasty piece of work.
oh, okay, yeah.
But yeah, it gave me
Uh
some Game of Thrones vibes that first episode with the biting off of a
oh,
finger, and I think the guy he got to bite the finger off, I think he was also in Game of Thrones as well. He looks really
was he?
familiar. I feel
He was
maybe
brutal
he
at the
was one of
beginning. Yeah.
Theon's lieutenants, maybe in one of the early seasons. I could be wrong,
Oh,
but
I see.
he looks very familiar.
I see. Yeah, yeah. He was. Yeah. He was. He was brutal. He is. He. The mule is scary in Foundation. He is.
He's very
He
polite
is
though,
scary. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
polite,
He's. Yeah.
polite makes you
yeah.
very
Yeah.
scary. It
Yeah.
adds to
Yeah. Just kill yourself when it suits you. You know, and
yeah,
then the guy kills himself. Yeah.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
yeah, it's he's gonna be like he seems completely, unpredictable and
Yeah, I think he's
completely.
that actor was a good guy to play him because
Yeah,
he does have that vibe in Game of Thrones as well. I don't know about other
but
stuff, but he's got a very villainous lot, like sort of don't know, yeah, like a slivery snake sort of vibe.
mm,
Yeah, like
the,
very dark and twisted, and rather like no good qualities.
what I would hope is that they tell us is his origin story, where he comes from.
Yeah,
Is he related to anyone from season two, like the people that had the powers? Like
yeah, the psychic
the
powers
the,
because obviously
the
he's got
psychic
psychic
powers.
powers. But then
Exactly.
yeah, I thought it was an interesting reference in the first episode when the who is it? There was the guy who the mayor, or effectively the guy who ran Foundation,
Of
and
course.
his chief of security. He was saying that there is like the mayor. He mentioned the psychic abilities, and then the mayor was like,
Mm,
"Oh, what's that like?"
yeah, like.
I think that it's like that's like seen as some sort of like how we might see certain religious or spiritual
Mm,
abilities, like they've sort of died out long ago, and effectively now they're just seen as like a silly myth or a legend. And that's what another thing which Foundation plays with is like this
mm,
analytical social history, but also all the spirituality and religious concepts which some of them seem more real than others. Like some obviously psychic powers seem like in the series they seem
mm,
real,
mm.
whereas and there's also ideas of religion or false systems growing up about
I know.
these
I like.
cult of
Yeah,
Harry Seldon effectively, and so
yeah, yeah.
even science can have religion grow up about it. Because science in you could say that grasps on something true or tries to predict the future, and that's what a lot of religion does as well. And religion, maybe you could argue, grasps onto something which feels true or is true, and then it creates this whole system around it, which is perhaps unhelpful individually and as a society.
Mm. It's interesting because I remember in season one of Foundation, the first Foundation was very, I think, almost cult-like and very religious, worshipping, you know, Harry Seldon. And then the second Foundation, from what I remember, wasn't as such, and then the third foundation became like traders. So it was like it shows you the different versions of like almost different social systems that can develop, one from religion, one from like through the economy, and one through science, and one obviously through the machine that controls the empire. So it shows you so many different like social organization systems, and all of them seems to be failing in some way or in one
Yeah,
or
well,
another. You know.
it's interesting that Harry Seldon in the first episode of series 3, when he got re-woken up, he was talking about how first people will worship the religion
Mm,
of it, and then people will worship the economy. Um,
exactly. I
and,
think
and
we're in
so
the economy stage ourselves here in the
as
real world.
civilization, yeah, we could argue we are worshippers of the economy, and we don't see that like money is a god in some way to us.
Mm,
Money, fame, status, that they taking the place of gods for a lot of people. Not to put it hyperbolically, but in terms of motivators of human behavior and how we are controlled by them rather than us controlling
mm.
them. Um, yeah, so they are gods in that aspect.
I agree. I agree. And I really want to see what they're gonna do with the new foundations, and obviously where like the other players will come in. I'm glad that all the actors returned that we've had in the previous seasons,
Yeah,
and yeah, I really look forward to what's the rest of the foundation. I think we should come back and talk about it when we've watched the rest of the season, along with everyone else. I'm sure a lot of
yeah,
people would want to watch it all, and if anyone hasn't watched it, I would highly recommend watching Foundation.
yeah. No, it's yeah, I think a lot of the people who see sci-fi as not just the value of entertaining us, but actually educating us or warning us or making us think deeper.
Mm,
That's Foundation certainly does that. And yeah, maybe before we end, we could actually just touch on actually what Foundation is about. It's in the title. So
yes.
I actually I've written a little bit about this
Oh, do
because
tell,
it was just
tell everyone.
I
Let
wrote
us
a
all.
tiny bit in the book I wrote or published half a year ago.
Perfect.
So
Tell us.
I'll read it and then you can play off that. So it's just like a paragraph or two. So the central idea behind the Foundation book series, because it was a book series before, by Isaac Asimov,
Mm,
expresses the value humans place on preserving the knowledge of civilization. Not to say civilization itself, but the knowledge,
mm,
and which needs provisions to preserve it in the case of civilization itself crumbling. So this value on preserving culture, practical wisdom, and or spiritual wisdom also explains why our ancient ancestors passed on stories to the next generation. With a decline in religion in modernized societies, we have also lost a sense of the inherent value in certain things such as art, culture, and consciousness. And then there's a footnote related to that. So libraries later took on this role with the Assyrian Royal Library of Ashurbanipal being the first we know of. So that's the first library with history records, dating back to the 6th century BC, so before the Library of Alexandria. The English writer H.G. Wells called that library, the Library of Ashurbanipal, the most precious source
mm,
of historical material in the world. Sacred texts have sometimes been buried, hidden to preserve them in times of political and religious upheaval, such as the Egyptian Nag Hammadi texts or the Chinese Dunhuang manuscripts. Um, but this is like a trend which carries on in future as well. And more recently, it's not just part of our past. People still have that urge to preserve. So in 1940, the Crypt of Civilization time capsule in Georgia, USA, was sealed. And it was sealed only to be opened in the year 8113. So whether we actually unseal it before that, it seems quite likely, but interesting. A similar sentiment of burying stuff to preserve it may even explain why 10,000 years ago the structures of the Gobekli Tepe in ancient Turkey were buried. So Klaus Schmidt, the archaeologist, the original excavator of that site, believes the site was deliberately buried, though there are multiple explanations to why that might have happened. So sorry, that was a bit
mm.
long-winded, but
No,
yeah,
it sounds really good. I mean, it's interesting because this is what Harry Sheldon has tried to do with those diamond shape. What is it called? The the archive thing. Like
Yes, the name escapes me, but yeah,
I
like
know.
they are like like I think it is a deliberate wink back to 2001: Space Odyssey with the monoliths, which advance
Yes,
human civilization. And so in this series, it's actually not advancing human civilization, but it's recording, it's preserving their wisdom or their ability to get back on their feet after a shorter time period of collapse.
the vault. The vault. It's called the vault.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
it is a vault. That is the thing. The vaults, for example, are effectively what you're describing, a way for to preserve that information, like almost like an AI library, effectively, to
Yeah.
kind of transmit that knowledge to each new kind of colony and planet and preserve it. And obviously has defenses, cannot be destroyed easily. It's like a proper vault of information. But what I find interesting is that despite having all that information, that doesn't mean that doesn't necessarily ensure the right trajectory. Like knowledge does not guarantee success in a way.
All knowledge is not guaranteed wisdom, as
Always exactly. It shows
Heraclitus
again
says. Yeah.
exactly as you said. The mayor of the new colony is like a complete like douchebag. Like
Yeah.
he hasn't he's not enlightened in any way. Like all the leaders from what we've seen in the series of every colony aren't the most enlightened people, despite
Mm.
having the knowledge of the vault
Yeah.
at
Despite
hand.
their ultimate purpose is perhaps preserving culture, society, which is actually a time capsule for their cultural values, their spiritual learnings, maybe their knowledge as well, practical and economical or whatever.
Mm,
So yeah, they are the leader is in a way they're preserving or helping the humans of a society, but they're also preserving the the culture.
mm, mm,
Um, and yeah, that's an interesting thing. And it's like, why is culture valuable? Is it just so that it stops collapse, or in Foundation's case, it will, because I think Harry Seldon predicts that if nothing happens, there will be a huge dark ages of thousands of years. But
mm,
with his system, he can narrow it down to, he can reduce it just to 1,000 years dark ages after the collapse of empire,
mm,
which is a lot better um, for humans, I guess. And so yeah, it's whether like culture is inherently valuable, and there's like sort of timeless principles, but it's our job as humans to further, and so we as humans in a way are servants to the timeless principles, or it's whether the timeless principles actually help humans, and so they help they help society regroup after a collapse in a
mm,
positive way. And so actually the timeless principles are serving humanity. Maybe it's maybe it's not like one is below the other, or and maybe both as help each other.
mm. In my mind, this is one of the most crucial things that we will have to address as humanity if we want to truly progress, is how we can truly transmit knowledge from one generation to another, you know, for people. And not transmit it in just a theoretical level, like truly transmit it. And I think culture has been the wave we've been. It's effectively a social engineering tool that we've been using for generations to effectively transmit some basic knowledge from one generation to another, keeping
Yeah,
the same principles without necessarily needing to give someone a book to read them. You know.
yeah. Obviously, like that can come with problems, and as we talked about earlier, conditioning. We are conditioning children, but I think it is also perhaps valuable, and you could even argue like fairy tales and
Mm,
Disney movies
everything.
that are like, and maybe Thomas the Tank are things which are like perennially, or like maybe they're imparting certain values on
Mm,
us, or ways of thinking, or prompting us to see the world in a certain way, which maybe it actually is, without us having to relearn it each time
mm,
as individuals. And so, yeah, like, could you? I want it. It would be an interesting. Just obviously, we wouldn't know, but imagine if there was no such thing as Hollywood, or
mm,
any movie industry in the whole world, or any fiction.
mm.
Like, how would society be right now? Would it be better? Would it be worse? Would it be non-existent? Like, we think of fiction as just entertainment and maybe not really that valuable, but it's I think it is possible all those three things could be true. It could be society could be worse, it could be better, it could be non-existent without
I
fiction.
think that could never happen. I think even if there was no films, no entertainment, no nothing, I still think there would be individual people that used to do what they did 2,000, 3,000 years ago, where they gathered up around one person, singing and dancing a story and entertaining others.
But then you got a
In
story.
I think people would create it. They
Yeah,
come
well,
from
yeah,
from
no,
from
I agree. I
innately. I
agree.
think.
But
I
that's I
think
should have
they.
clarified though. What if there was no stories? What if people just weren't creative?
I think that then it's a parallel universe where we aren't built we don't have the brain we have. Like
Yeah, I
it's
would imagine. Yeah, without that, we would maybe die. But because Yuval Noah Harari, as an atheist, talks about the importance of stories, we might be just
yeah,
die
we
out,
wouldn't exist.
or
I think yeah, we
we might
wouldn't
just
exist.
become a hyper efficient, just really robotic species.
I don't think we would have evolved. I don't think we would have evolved. We would still be on trees. I think.
Mm, yeah,
That's what I think. We wouldn't have evolved. I think this shows, like, I think this is inextricably linked to our like creativity, and the creativity has been the human creativity has been what led us to create weapons, use fire, use tools, and build stuff and build the whole world that we live in.
yeah,
So
and also as Yuval Noah Harari talks about it, we build stories which connect us, which allow us to build, yeah, like hospitals or whatever, because
everything.
we actually are both motivated, like all people building a hospital are motivated by a certain religious or moral idea which has been brainwashed, you might say, into us, or maybe it actually reflects something true.
What mug is that? Never seen this mug.
It's like the Penguin book of called On the Railways, and it's got some pictures of
Are
railway
you
stuff.
like one of these train spotters?
Well, my family is. So
Really?
yeah, my dad was trying to. Well, he volunteers at the Watercress Line, which is a local steam railway, and he's been into it for a long time. And my little brother as well is very into it.
No
So
way.
yeah,
You
he's
know,
always been into trains ever since Thomas the Tank and never stopped.
oh, Thomas the Tank is legendary. Like I
Yeah,
used to watch Thomas the Tank when I was the train when I was
I
young.
didn't realize it was so like global because
It's
it's
global. Of
my
course, it's
brother's
global.
girlfriend from Peru as well. She was Thomas the Tank in Spanish when she was young, and
Yeah, and he was in Greek. Like when I watched it, it was dubbed in Greek for children. When I was watching it, I think our generation has all watched Thomas the Train. I swear, there's no way. I think it had a lot of really good stories back in the day. I don't remember a lot, if I'm honest with you. But when it
mm,
comes to Thomas the Train, I remember this particular story about a particular train engine in Thomas the Train who did not want to do its job.
oh yeah, Henry.
I can't
Is it
remember
Henry?
the name.
The green one, but number three, I think.
Yeah, it was one of them, and he didn't want to do its job. And they were trying to convince him to do his job and kind of pull the carriages and everything and kind of go back and forth as it's meant to do, like every other train. And then he kept refusing, and by the end of the episode, they doomed him to eternal prison by actually stonewalling him inside an actual kind of like warehouse with a wall in front of him. And I'm still traumatized by that
Interesting.
episode, I swear.
Yeah, no, I remember that, and you just got the
Do you remember?
like he can peek out, so it's like the bricks go up through his nose. But, he can still
I'm
see
surprised
what's
you
happening
actually.
in the outside world.
I'm surprised you actually remember it yourself as well.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was yeah, traumatic. I don't know. I don't think it was for me, but
I
I
was
don't think
traumatized back
I
then.
don't think when I'm that young, I don't think I think through so much stuff. So when you rewatch stuff, you're like you catch whole new meanings that you didn't get when you were a kid because you were stupid. I don't know. But anyway, clearly you got affected by that.
I was because I thought
You
I thought that's a little bit harsh. I was thinking that's harsh. Like, yeah, fair enough, he's lazy, but like laziness is punished by eternal, punishment.
well, maybe that's a lesson for life.
I know.
You're
I
not willing,
suppose.
yeah, not willing to do what you're I don't know, meant to do is perhaps too strong a word, because you could obviously you could lead people down the wrong path without ideology, but the refusal to get up in the morning and go about whatever is the next thing you need to do, that does in some cases lead to some sort of psychological, I don't know, malaise, which means you just can't function properly in the world.
And I mean, I was saying that just now, like laziness results to eternal damnation, and I just thought actually one of the seven deadly sins is slothness, which
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
does lead to eternal damnation.
Yeah, I think obviously these religious sins have got some truth to them. Obviously, otherwise psychological truth in some way, because otherwise they wouldn't resonate and they wouldn't have been kept around. So, but yeah, like to see them as like eternal damnation, like burning in hellfire, that's probably unhelpful, because if you're skeptical, you don't look at things that way, and then you just ignore it because you think, oh, of course, there's no such thing as hellfire. But
No,
then
no, but
actually, if you analyze it, yeah, a lot of those seven deadly sins have something in them. Obviously, some of them you could
hmm,
argue come from psychological issues of the people who came up with them.
and I
Or
would actually argue that if you suffer from, let's say, the seven deadly sins, it would actually be a detriment to your life now more than anything, rather than hell, rather than
yeah, well,
waiting for
that's
hell.
like Jordan Peterson's whole idea, isn't it? But heaven and hell are effectively now, in terms of how we
Exactly.
live our individual lives, and that maps onto society's lives. And I think that's not a controversial idea for Christians either. They just think yes, that
Mm.
and the other stuff, the afterlife as well. So same with
Mm.
the kingdom of heaven is here and now, as Jesus said, but also it's afterlife as well.
I know. I would never think that Thomas the Train had such implications, you know?
When it was written by a Christian, it was written by Reverend Aldrin.
Really? I did not know that, actually. There you
Yeah, so
go.
it's imposing Christian values. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe he tried not to uh, become too moralizing about with trains. But yeah,
Yeah, but something that is aimed at children. Children don't really see it through a religious lens, like stories like that. As you say, you watched it as a kid and you didn't think much of it in in so much depth.
yeah, and I think that's interesting to think about, like the religion of children, like because in some ways, yeah, they aren't religious, but also a lot of philosophers or Jesus as well would talk of uh, children as the ones who actually had access to the kingdom of heaven effectively. And there's this African proverb which says you don't have to point out God to a child.
Hmm.
Um, and, and yeah, Chuang-Tzu, I think the Taoist philosopher, talked of how
Hmm.
children get it and adults don't. So maybe, yeah, although children are not religious, they are
Hmm.
kind of spiritual, but not in the way we think of as spiritual as like angels and astrology and whatever, but and
Hmm.
like theories and images and symbols, but rather they are they get it on the level of just yeah real life, being in the present moment, yeah, having it, feeling intense emotions. Obviously,
Hmm.
as you grow up, learning
Yeah.
to modulate those emotions is useful, but some of us modulate in the wrong ways. And so you could argue that children are actually more spiritually advanced than them, not as in spiritual advance is a ladder to get up, but rather a lot of us fall down from the state we're already at when
Hmm.
we're born.
I I do wonder, and from looking back at my own childhood, if it's because children are much more unburdened, and more carefree. As we go through our lives, we kind of accumulate a lot of stresses, burdens, kind of struggles. We kind of baggage. We all get baggage. I think so.
Mm.
I think I wonder if that is what creates a cumulative impact in us that kind of stops us up to a certain point to be much more open and much more accepting of stuff and much more constricted in terms of ideas, while something for a child is like, okay, fine, you don't need to, as you said, explain things. It's just children get it sometimes.
Yeah, no, I expect that's true. Like a lot of people like Anthony DeMello will talk about how we just add on all these yeah, like conditioning effectively, like Krishnamurti as
Mm,
well. We talk about how we just yeah, as we get older, we tend to sort of become sticky. We're like a sticky ball going through life, picking up lots of other people's opinions and ways of doing things, and
mm,
then formulating them into our own views, which actually are just abstractions from other people's views, and our own experience, which might be drawing the wrong lessons from experience as well. And so yeah, like it's maybe yeah quite hard to go through life without being sticky, but a lot, I don't know who described it, but I'm sure someone has described spirituality as just being unsticky. So sort of being able
mm.
to, the ability to go through life without having anything stick onto you, and to be able to let go of stuff as it
I
comes. And
actually, now that you mention it, I think that reminds me a little bit of Alan Watts. I think Alan Watts
probably,
has
yeah,
said something about your mind not being sticky in a
yeah,
way. I
yeah.
think
And
I
so
think he
not
talked
so
about.
like desire or wrong is wrong or fear is wrong, but the stickiness of desire and fear. So like if
Being
desire
pulled down.
becomes sticky, then it becomes clinging, and you
Mm,
hold on to it. You want to get things, you want to keep hold of what you've got, and then when you lose it, you want to get it again or something like it again, and so you are stretched in that direction. I think
mm,
attention, the root of the word attention, means historically or etymologically, it means to stretch, and so to
mm,
release attention is to
mm,
yeah to reclaim your attention effectively. Um, and then yeah, fear. Like obviously, fear is a useful thing when we just have some sudden
mm.
sound or whatever. It's like kids would react to that. They're like, "Whoa!" And
Yeah, yeah, of course.
but then like a duck, they'll just shake it off after a fight.
Mm,
But they don't carry memory with them, or they don't try and remember that specific instance of fear and try and
mm,
add their thinking to it, their planning minds, to try and retain that fear into the futures in some attempt to not experience bad things in the future.
mm. I was reading something at some point that was talking about how, obviously, as you mentioned, you hear a sound, you might be afraid and stuff. But because obviously we live in a society now where we're quite safe, all in all. Like we're not afraid of a tiger jumping out of the bushes to
Well,
kill
not
us or
not in
something
the
like that.
UK.
Not in the UK, let's say, in in Europe at least, and the Western world. But
Well, maybe
they
the
were
USA
effective.
if you got Tiger King out there and his
Exactly.
tigers.
But like we're not. We don't have to fear so much about everyday survival as such. They were talking about how these days, because we don't have that, other things that are mundane, really,
Mm,
just part of our everyday lives, like part of like what we do at work or what we do in our personal lives, they have kind of replaced those survival fears, and
yeah,
they activate our nervous system and our body in the same way as well.
yeah,
So you effectively get that fight or flight response, but like just by having to do a task or something
yeah,
like that, and and how this is actually really chipping away at our mental health and our kind of stability as our in our personal lives and stuff. So
yeah.
it's
I
it's
think
interesting
that
how.
there's some quote,
Go
isn't
on.
there? Like I forget what it was, but it's along the lines of a warrior will always have something to worry about, and yeah, I think that's true. You probably notice people in your lives, or even yourself, and myself certainly in some instances, like you worry about, even if you have like no worries, you then just find something to worry about. It's like
Yeah, exactly.
the person who's been on a treadmill for years can't stop running. Uh, so I think yeah, then it's hard to know how to get out of that. But
Yeah.
I think probably the best advice is just to observe it rather than to be in it effectively. So rather than to just be stressing, or to use a treadmill analogy, to always feel
Mm,
you're running, is to
mm,
actually just allow that, but also to observe it at the same time. And
mm,
that action, that very sort of observation of it non-judgmentally, might mean that it doesn't carry on, or it might mean
mm,
it does carry on, but at least you're in a different perspective to your suffering.
mm. Also, another good point that I've heard from a few different people mentioning it, I'm not the first one to say it, is even if something scares you or you're afraid of something, just do it scared. I know it sounds, a little bit, silly, but like
Mm.
just do it anyway.
Yeah,
It's
well, there's
just
that famous book, isn't there, called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, which,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
maybe you don't need to read the book to really get what that's about. Um, but yeah, like, yeah, I think often the things we fear are very valuable, or at least they teach us about what we're, what beliefs or what is holding us back, because really there's very little to fear, especially in the
Mm,
modern world, as you say,
mm.
to really fear. Like, there's Tim
Like
Ferriss.
failure doesn't mean death
Yeah,
usually.
like Tim Ferriss does an exercise, or encourages others to do an exercise as well, doing it himself. But he talks of fear setting and writing down what you're actually scared about, and then
Mm,
if then you've got a list of things you're scared about, and then
mm,
what you're actually scared about, like behind those fears, and then like 2 or 3 steps after that, then you'll see actually all of those fears are actually not really fears, unless
mm,
you tie yourself to certain obligations to other people or whatever. And obviously that's a difficult place to be in. Sometimes you might often you might say, oh, I need to keep this job because of family, because I need to support the family or whatever. And that's, yeah, a tricky situation. It's much easier when actually you're on your own. But Alan Watts would say, what's the point of um, yeah, making more money and whatever to support your family if you're going to just teach them to cling? You're
mm,
teaching, your mindset is rubbing off on your children, and so they're just going to live a life like you, just grasping onto this. So Alan Watts gives the analogy of life is like a man and a rock falling off a cliff, and
mm,
the man is trying to grasp onto this rock as he's falling to try and hold on to something. Obviously, it's not going to save him. Um, but yeah, so if you carry through that attitude through life, you're just going to train your children to have that same viewpoint.
mm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like there's like it's rather than just saying let go of things, it's really realizing the futility or even the danger of not letting go.
Mm. Yeah, you wouldn't want your children to repeat the same patterns you've done in the past. I suppose any parent would want to avoid that.
Yeah.
We don't want our children to repeat our mistakes, I suppose. But I was watching an interesting video actually the other day about a place called a youth retirement center in China. So listen to
Youth
this. I know,
retirement
yeah,
center.
I know. It
Okay.
sounds very oxymoron, doesn't it?
That's a bit.
So it is a place in China uh, called the Guan Yi Youth Retirement Center, where young adults can go, and it almost reminded me like a retreat. It's a little bit like a retreat, but it's like you pay about $500 a month, and you can live there. You get fed. You get given 3 square meals a day, and you get to have a community with other young people. So you live with them, and you all live together,
Yeah.
like a place where you almost, imagine how a care home would be for the elderly, but like for young people. And at the same time, during the days, they do activities and they go out and they go to the local market and they play board games and
Mm.
they they allow themselves to effectively think and contemplate about their lives. And it's about kind of those young people that have been really stressed with their lives and they don't know where their life is headed, to kind of have a chance to let it all go and let go of their fears, speak to other people that are in similar positions as them,
Yeah.
and kind of disengage from everything that kind of bogs them down. And I thought that is such a cool concept.
Yeah, it's a good idea. And even if you don't use them like very regularly, it's nice to have the knowledge that you got that option there. So you got that safety net. Whereas in the UK, for instance, obviously you got the financial safety net, but things like, yeah, like psychologically, it's
Hmm.
like, I think it would be nice to know that there is a place to go. It might not be perfect, but there will be lots of other people there. You can
Hmm.
chill out, you can play games or whatever. Um, yeah, you can do stuff with other people and find out that other people are struggling with the same things as you, so it's not so
Yeah.
lonely. Um,
Exactly.
and I think that would be a net benefit to society as well, and the economy,
I know,
ultimately,
right?
even though it costs stuff to run this stuff. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in his election campaign. I'm not sure if he's going to do it now. He's Human Health and Services Secretary. But anyway, what he was talking about was, like these camps for, I think he was saying specifically for people who were recovering from drug addiction and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, like general, maybe he was saying also mental health. So I think that is a good idea. So somewhere out in nature, just a
Mm,
place to retreat back to. Like Krishnamurti talks about the importance of not just people with bad mental health, but everyone retreating and
mm,
taking maybe a week or two to recuperate, to reassess how to go forwards and to sort of catch your breath, as it were,
mm,
rather than be constantly running. And that could be more efficient for you individually and the society as well.
I completely agree. I thought it was such a genius concept, and I was very surprised hearing about something like that in China. Like, in some ways, that sounded so cool.
Yeah, well, I think
And we
we're very
don't, and I've
biased.
never heard of anything like that here.
No, we're very biased against China, and that could blind
I
us to
know.
actually seeing good ideas it comes up with, because they're not as bad as like we make out them being. They like
Well, the
I
government might be. I don't know. Like,
well, yeah, like I don't agree with communism, and I think they are probably way too authoritarian, and they've committed loads of probably not great
mm,
crimes against humanity. But in terms of China, like if you're a Chinese person, a lot of Chinese people will probably think, actually, on the face of it, they seem to be doing an okay job. And maybe you could say, oh, that's just brainwashing, but maybe it's just, if you're saying that, maybe you've been brainwashed to some extent. I think it's like there's always nuance. There's always like
I think
some
there's
good
always
stuff that's
nuance.
like in terms of
And
they're very efficient at building stuff. And I'm sure if we're complete, for instance, if we're blind to their innovations and
mm,
just because they're Chinese and communists, then we won't implement their economic innovations. And the same could be true for psychological and philosophical innovations. If you just choose to not see a certain part of the world, then you miss
mm.
out on that.
But I would also argue maybe at the societal level, obviously things are different compared to you know Western democracies. But I would think at an atomic level, I think people all around the world have very similar fears, struggles,
Yeah.
wishes, um, issues, and problems and struggles in their lives. I think young people all around the world will probably have similar um, worries growing up. Financial worries, career worries, family worries. We're not all that different
No, no.
as we like to think. We like to think that we're very different,
Yeah.
just because our cultures are different or because our political systems are different. But I don't think people at an atomic level are that different.
Yeah, like in some ways we're incredibly different, but in some ways we're actually really very similar.
Yeah.
And it's like a little bit of a paradox. But the more you meet people from around the world, and you think, yeah, actually they're just so similar to the things I'm struggling with, the things I enjoy. Um, and then I think there's still maybe a perception, oh, there'll be somewhere else which people will be different, but actually, I'm yet to find someone
Mm.
who's actually genuinely different.
Mm-hmm. I know. Yeah. I thought that was so cool. I thought that was that retreat idea. Well, retreat, that center, retirement center. Apparently, like on paper, people don't stay in, like they don't spend years and years there. They just spend like a few weeks to months maybe
Yeah,
there.
it's probably a good time. Like,
And then
otherwise, it's just too long. You're like the Thomas the Tank Engine story of
yeah,
you're retreating from life too long, which is a problem in
exactly.
itself.
Yeah, yeah.